Let me tell you a quick story about Cesar Luis Menotti. And it encapsulates basically everything I don't know if he stood for, but how he developed himself, self taught as a coach, and also as a footballing man, how he saw the world. 1974 World Cup, the Dutch face the Germans in the final. Of course, Germany ends up winning that World Cup, but the team that ends up having the impact is Clockwork Orange. What happens in football circles, like it has happened always, it's happened recently, it's happened since time. The trend. Where is football going? At that time, it said, well, it's going towards Europe. It's going towards physicality and symmetry and pressure, things of those qualities that the Dutch were excelling in, and of course, as did the Germans. So it was the Germans, it was the Dutch. You could even say it was at that point Yugoslavia. Many of those countries were the ones that were being looked at as the ones that are taking the torch and taking it towards the future after Brazil and what they did in the 1970 World Cup. Menotti turns around and says, no, football's South American. People were kind of confused and puzzled as to why he would say that, especially an Argentina side that just got their doors blown off by the Dutch in that same World Cup 4-0. Toulon comes, of course, the Toulon tournament that we've known for years. It happened, of course, it was a more important tournament in terms of the national teams or at the youth level. There's still certain importance, but not that as much as it did initially during that time. He takes a group of young Argentines, some from various parts of the country, which is something that coaches really never did. And if you look at the national team now, you see Messi from Rosario, same thing with Di Maria, Julian Alvarez from Córdoba, a lot of players from other provinces that aren't Buenos Aires. Before that usually didn't happen. Well, Menotti took that idea in about 50 years ago and started making it, transcending it. You saw players like Kempes from Córdoba. You saw Galvan, who was also from Rosario. A lot of players from other provinces around around Argentina. At that point, he took a lot of those young players to Toulon. Of course, they'd never been out of the country. They'd never been, in another culture and seeing people that spoke different languages and everything else. So when they start seeing the Germans and the Dutch play, guys that are 5'11", 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", playing, physically imposing, great demeanor, great command, blonde hair, blue eyes. Whereas you have guys that are 5'7", 5'6", 5'9", to be real tall. And they weren't that. And they start saying, oh man, these guys are so amazing. Oh, they're so much better than us, and they're this and they're that, and they're this and they're that, and they're this and they're that, and they're this and that. Menotti turns around and looks at those players. He says, what are you talking about? You're much stronger than they are. Let me tell you something, son. He basically goes and says, these Germans, these Dutch, if they go into your neighborhood or where you came from or where you are, they wouldn't survive a week. Because they aren't used to that adversity that you've had to go through to get here. They never had to endure the pain and the suffering and the misery and all of the obstacles that you had to overcome in order for you to get here. That ended up switching the mindset of Argentine football, or at least Argentine footballers outside of Buenos Aires, and really changed a great deal of how the national team comported itself. He planted that seed initially and created something that was very special going into that 1978 World Cup. I hope you enjoyed that one. Talk to you soon. Ciao.